Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along to Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Now, on today's show, we're going to be discussing how to overcome uncertainty. We'll explain what we mean by that in just a few moments' time. Now, joining me in the studio today is Jude Jensen. She's from a company called Leaders by Nature. In fact, she is Leaders by Nature. We'll find out a little bit more about Jude right now. Jude, great to have you on the program today. For those people who know absolutely nothing about you, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm the founding director of Leaders by Nature, and I work with senior leaders and executive teams to help them align their teams and develop their leaders so that they can accelerate their business results in uncertainty.
Leadership is a funny old thing. There are a lot of people out there that claim to be either leadership coaches or they will train people to be leaders. What do you think the position of leaders are at the moment in the country? Do we have good leadership out there, or do we have mediocre or just plainly bad? And is the good leader the exception?
No, I think there's some outstanding leadership out there. I mean, I think politics accepted, which is not my area of expertise, but I think certainly in business there's some really outstanding leadership across all organisations and all sectors. But I think there's always room for improvement. And I think particularly in uncertainty, we need a different style of leadership and we need different skills. So we need to continually upskill. On a daily basis, I'm looking to refine my leadership skills because I think that's what we need to do to move forward.
What do you think briefly makes a good leader?
It's a whole host of things, but I think two particular things are you really clear about where you're going? Do you have a vision, a strategy? Have you got clear objectives? If you don't know where you're going, you don't know whether you're getting there. But also strong relationship skills. So understanding the people and realising it's people who will create those results. And you need to have the balance between the two, because if you focus too much on the results and forget about the people, then the people might not come willingly. And if you focus too much on the people and forget about where you're going, then you can get this analysis paralysis and go around in circles because you're too busy trying to be nice. So there's this real balance that's required.
Do you think there's been a big change over the last, shall we say, couple of decades where leadership styles truly have changed? We're looking now at leaders who people look up to and admire and will follow. And yet maybe 20 years ago, the kind of leadership was, you will do as you're told because I am the leader. Have you seen that change? And do we still have some of those dinosaurs out there?
Yeah, I think, yes, so lots of questions there, but in terms of have we moved our leadership styles, yes. 20 years ago it was very much command and control. You were expected to do what your boss told you to do. Now people want to have much more of an opinion, and by having more of an opinion, people are more engaged, you get more diversity of thought, and you move away from groupthink. It was groupthink that caused the financial crisis in 2008. So it's good that we're moving away from command and control. That requires us to think and behave in a different way.
Do you think there are skills that we need to learn as leaders within our organisations?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the more that we're continually refining the way we do things, the more effective we can be. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is to have a sense of what's the impact that I'm creating? Am I getting what I'm wanting? Am I being too focused on the goals? Am I too focused on the people? Are people empathetic? Is there an understanding? But also not being too empathetic that you lose sight of where you're going, because sometimes you have to make tough decisions as well. So
because sometimes what you get is you get decisions by committee, don't you? And you really don't want that. If you're the leader, it needs to be your decision and you need to then lead them through that decision.
Well, there's a whole range of different styles. So sometimes leading from the front, you are the one making the decision, saying this is where we're going. A more collaborative style would be bringing people on board, and then it's more democratic, and then, as you say, it's decision by committee. But you have to be careful with that, because you will never get decision by committee, and we've seen that in politics brilliantly. But but even in business, you won't get decision by committee. So ultimately, somebody has to take a stand and say, this is where we're heading, and everybody has to get on board with it.
We've been through a couple of years, as far as politics is concerned, with absolute uncertainty, and I suppose that has sort of come down into businesses as well, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know which way or how to prepare for whatever is ahead of them. And I suppose to a certain extent, when we're in life, we never know what the following phone call or the next day is going to bring.
Yeah.
So business lives in the world of uncertainty.
Absolutely.
But for the past couple of years, we seem to be so uncertain. We've turned it into an art. So do you think leadership skills are different in that circumstance?
Yeah, absolutely they are, because in the past, people were leading within what was known and understood. So, if you've got stability economically, politically, environmentally, then you can make changes and make decisions within your business according to the context within which you're operating. But if everything is uncertain, politically we have been, economically and environmentally, then that changes everything, and the decision making has to be have a fast response. You're having to respond to what's happening within the context of your own business environment. And then, of course, larger organisations are being disrupted by smaller organisations. So, for example, in the finance industry, you've got your big high street banks, but then you've got new startups that are coming that are massively disrupting the marketplace. So companies like Monzo and Starling and various others are really changing the way that business and in the financial sector does business. And so leadership needs to respond to that, to be able to rapidly understand what's happening in the market, and then how do we leverage our own business and the people to deliver something different.
So then, what is the thing that makes a good leader then? Is it the fact that they can respond quickly, that they have the knowledge to be able to do that? And is that what's leaving some of the other leaders behind, because they can't respond quickly, they can't react to a situation?
Yeah, I think speed is important, because markets are changing so rapidly. I think knowledge is less important, because everybody can look it up on the internet these days. And actually, in the past, where a good leader would have all of the knowledge themselves and make the decision, now it's much more important to engage people and include people in the decision-making process. And that means you don't have to have all the answers as a leader. But what you do need to have is good listening skills, good people skills, and an ability to step out into the unknown and trust that you can execute your vision with a team of people, with an organisation.
You're going into large multinationals on a regular basis. You're talking to very senior executives in these organisations. What's the thing that you find yourself saying the most to them? What's the most common phrase that you say and you think, oh, here we go, done this before then?
Well, the most common thing they say to me is, how do we get people to do what we need them to do? And therein lies the challenge, because when you lead people, it's always uncertain as to whether they're going to do what you want them to do or not. What's the most common thing I say? It's not my business to tell people what to do. My business is about helping leaders understand and explore, where are they brilliant as leaders, where are they derailing themselves as leaders, as individuals and as a team, and then exploring experientially together, how do they move forward, how do they align as a team, how do they communicate more effectively.
Now, you take quite a unique approach to this, don't you? And you come at it from a slightly different angle, because let's face it, leadership coaches are 10 a penny out there. So how do you differentiate yourself?
Well, I think people are bored of death by PowerPoint, aren't they? And I think particularly the senior leaders and exec teams that I'm working with, they've done, they've got MBAs, they've done all of the classroom-based training, and they've read that, they read extensively, but there's no substitution for learning by experience. And so I work with a herd of horses, and yes, you did hear right, it was a herd of horses. I work with a herd of horses, and so I bring leaders and teams out to work with my horses to understand where they're brilliant and where they get stuck.
See, at that point, that sounds a little bit madness, doesn't it? It sounds a little crazy. So what do you do with them then? Is it team building within their groups to see how they will manage the horses who are free spirits in their own right? Is that what you do with them, or is it the experience that they get with the horses that they learn lessons from? How do they learn?
It's both. So horses respond based on your non-verbal communication, and people assume that that's body language, but it's so much more than that. So they're responding based on what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your emotions, your intentions, your energy. So you know that person that walks into the room and overpowers the room, well, the horse will move away from that. But equally, the people pleasers who are just being too nice, the horses won't engage with that either. So what horses want is exactly what people want, which is for us to be absolutely bang on, being assertive, being clear about where we're going, doing it through relationship and communication.
When you explain this to senior leaders, what reaction do you get?
They're usually curious and fascinated.
And when you have to explain it to them, what kind of questions do they ask you?
They often ask me for examples. So the example of the people pleaser will spend lots of time stroking the horse and the horse won't move. And the aggressive person will spend lots of time saying, right, move, and the horse won't go. And so we need that. We demonstrate that value between clarity and relationship.
And does it work? Does it translate well then, the lessons that they learn to their workforce as well? So they learn the lessons with you. Does it work when they go back? What kind of feedback have you had afterwards?
And I've had companies turn a loss-making division into a profit in just 3 months. I've had small businesses who've exponentially grown their business as a result of developing their teams. Because once you get people in a team aligned and with a level of honesty and openness and transparency, then they can achieve anything together.
Listen, we've got more to come in just a few moments' time, and I think you're going to find it really interesting. Jude Jensen is my guest today. Leaders by Nature is the name of her company. We're going to be talking a little bit more about leadership skills, of course. We're also going to be looking at the very uncertainty that's probably in everybody's business at the moment. We're going to be discovering that and exploring that a little bit more on this edition of Business Connections Live. So more from Jude in just a few moments' time. You're watching Business Connections Live. We're live here on a Monday. It's great to have your company as always. A really good guest. Let's go back a week, shall we? She was the first guest of 2020. What a strange thing to still be saying. And my advice last week, remember, is do not just put 20 when you're writing the date out on important documents. Do 2020, because if you don't, then they can be altered to make them look like 2018, 2019 and so on. So be aware of that. Just a little bit of advice that I thought I'd give you on this edition of the programme. But let's go back. Anne Parker was my guest last week, and we were looking at network marketing. She's taken a very successful and already existing successful business, and she's grown it here in the UK. She said she gave some good advice on what you should be looking for when it comes to network marketing kind of products. She also talked about the products as well and how they've helped her, and what she's looking for in the people who come and join her happy band of people who are helping her market the product onwards. It was a good show last week. If you miss it, here are the key highlights from last week's edition of Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. Anne Parker is my guest. She's from the Synergy Health Company, and we're talking about the products that she sells direct to the end user, and also to people who want to network or act as agents and distributors for the range of products.
I'd always been interested in supplements, and I'd always believed in supplementing a good diet, and I thought I did eat a good diet. Not perfect, but I did eat a good diet. I didn't eat rubbish, and I cooked most of my own food. Network marketing, it isn't for everybody. Mm-hmm. But if it suits you, then can be absolutely fantastic, and the rewards can be amazing, but they are not get-rich-quick schemes. And anybody who tells you they are is being disingenuous, because they're not. And it takes effort and time. And the people in this country who are making a lot of money either have very good products, they're very, very good at what they do, or they've been doing it consistently for a long period of time. So you get out of it what you put into it. There is a lot of support and there is a lot of help. You're not just on your own. And it's important that you choose the right company with the right culture and the right products. It's got to be something that interests you. And these health products really interested me, because if I won't use it, I won't sell it. People have to be a product of the product. So I want people who will take the product. I take all our products every day, and I always will do. Even if I decide in a few years' time I don't want to do this business anymore, I will still continue to take the product. Pro RG9 Plus keeps me alive on a daily basis. I'm absolutely convinced of it. So in the past I've worked with customers on a one-to-one basis, but more and more now I'm looking to work with companies who are starting to appreciate that if they have healthy employees, they're happier, they've got more energy, they're therefore more productive. And I'm particularly looking for health professionals in the private field. My name's Anne Parker from the Synergy Health Company. If you've listened to this programme here today, what I would like you to go away and think about is how you as an individual can take responsibility for your own health. I genuinely believe that prevention is better than cure. And we are going to be in a situation very soon where nearly half our population is going to be obese, and with that is going to come an awful lot of problems for the National Health Service. And it will not be able to cope. So we are going to have to, whether we want to or not, take some responsibility for our own health. But we are lucky because the science is there, the science is available to us, where we can enjoy elite health, and that is where age does not dictate your ability. And a healthy microbiome is the key to achieving that. You can now decide what age you want to be. You can decide how long you're going to live. And remember, it's not just the years in your life, it's the life in your years. And this isn't my saying, but I do like to say it. Look after your body or you will have nowhere to live.
Anne Parker on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. A really fascinating show. If you are into network marketing, I have a very good friend who does a lot of that as well. He has made an absolute mint from it. It just seems that we were talking earlier on, weren't we, Jude, about buckets of luck. Some people say you don't need buckets of luck. Some people feel that you do. What's your feelings on buckets of luck? Is it a necessary part of any business, do you think?
Oh, I think there's an element of luck, but I also think you create your own luck. I think by the actions that you take on a daily basis. I mean, sometimes people will say, oh, aren't you lucky you've created this great business? It's like, well, I've created the business. That's the key thing, is that's not luck. Okay, there's the odd client that comes along that's luck, but most of what I've done is through hard graft.
It's the overnight success, isn't it? I'm an overnight success that's only taken 20 years.
Yes.
That is the big thing, isn't it? Listen, if you want to watch the entire program with Anne Parker, you can simply go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. If you're thinking to yourself, I would like to have a program like that, or I'd like to appear as an expert guest on Business Connections Live, then it's dead easy to do. All you got to do is get in touch with us here at the studio, talk to myself or to Linda Bazant, and our email address is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Or if you wish, you can pick the phone up and give us a call on 01784 256 777. Please do give us a call on that, because I think so many of us don't pick the phone up these days. We hide behind emails, we hide behind anything but picking the phone up and talking to people. So get in touch with us like that. If you want, you can follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV on Twitter. You can also watch the programme on Facebook, but the best place to actually go to watch the programme afterwards, of course, is our website, where there are over 280 odd programmes. There's over 400 hours of great business advice for people just like you who are trying to grow their business. And it covers every aspect of business, from marketing through to sales, through to fundraising, through to social media, to exec directorships. Everything is covered on there. If you want a real resource for your business to help it grow, then go to the website businessconnectionslive.com. Today we're talking about how to overcome uncertainty in business. We've probably had a mountain of it over the last couple of years when it comes to the way that politics have been reacting. But how's it been affecting your business, and how do you control and how do you manage that? My guest today is Jude Jensen. She is the Leaders by Nature. What are you, CEO, Managing Director, Chief Bottle
whatever
Washer?
you want to call me, really. Yes, I own Leaders by Nature, yes.
Okay, let's talk about the whole world of uncertainty. And I mentioned there that we have been in an uncertain world recently. How does it actually reveal itself in business, do you think?
Well, I think we're at a time where technology is driving a rapid pace of change, and so that is disrupting the way that we do business. It's disrupting the way that we live and work. And so we need to adapt based on that, and that creates change and it creates uncertainty. Then we've got economical, the context of economics, we've got politics. Anytime we create change or uncertainty in any one of those things, it creates change and uncertainty in business, because business has to continually be ahead of where the market is in order to survive.
What about the emotional response to that? What do you mean? Because I noticed you've written that down in some of the notes that we've got here. Emotional response. Whose emotional response are we talking about?
Everybody's. So the thing about uncertainty is it's uncomfortable. So what happens in change is you get a small number of people who get really enthusiastic about change. So no matter what you say you're going to do, they'll go, great, brilliant, I'm in. But that's a small minority of people. And then at the other end of the spectrum is a small minority of people who will say no to everything. And in the middle is the rest of your organisation who will be willing but sceptical or uncomfortable. But whenever we're not in certainty, and at the moment everything is uncertain and probably will be forever now, but we're not actually skilled to cope with uncertainty. We've been trained that we get up in the morning, we go to work at 9, we come home at 5. That was all certain. The context within which we're living and working now is much more fluid, much more flexible. Business is evolving constantly, and that's creating uncertainty. And so what happens is people feel uncomfortable. So the levels of stress and overwhelm will increase, and we're seeing that in people. In fact, Zurich Global Risk Report highlighted as one of the top 5 risks globally last year was a decline in empathy and a rise in anger. And that's alongside cybersecurity and climate change. So empathy and anger is an issue globally. But
do you think that's just the way we're developing at the moment? It just seems that everybody now, I know my rights, and everybody is just angry at everybody, and nobody is backward anymore in coming forward, are they?
No.
I mean, we are told to complain more readily. We seem to now, the end user, the customer, everybody seems to be able to have a voice, and it just seems to be now that that's the thing that people do.
Well, and what that does is creates more uncertainty, because as everybody has a voice, then the uncertainty continues, because in the old command and control style of leadership, the CEO would have a voice and everybody fell into line. But now those days are gone. There's much more decision making happening at all levels of an organisation, and therefore there's more uncertainty. So there's more stress, there's more overwhelm. What also happens in uncertainty is we get fear and polarisation, and we've seen that in the UK over Brexit, where people argue vehemently, and it doesn't matter whether you were in the Remain camp or the Leave camp, whichever one you were in, you're probably rigidly sticking with it, and nothing anyone says is going to get you to change your mind. Well, all that does is it creates this clash between people that is polarisation. And what happens in uncertainty is we get more of that. And so part of what we need to do now as leaders is upskill to make sure that we don't engage in polarisation and continual conflict. So we need more empathy, we need more understanding, we need better listening skills, we need to be able to collaborate more effectively, and not just in one organisation, but cross-sector, cross-organisation as well. So we're asking a lot of our leaders, and we're asking for empathy and compassion, as well as the clarity and direction and strategy that we always had before.
I heard an expression on Saturday that what we seem to do now is that you have two types of people. You have people who think to talk, and you have people who talk to think, and the talk to think ones are the ones who are talking, but they're never ever listening to anybody. And that just causes more issues for people when they're trying to communicate ideas. And also what you're saying, you can see that in the teaching profession, can't you? In our day, I say in my day, not your day because you're a lot younger than I am, but if anything were to happen at school and you would tell your parents that you'd been sent to the headmaster's office, so not only were you reprimanded by the headmaster, you'd be reprimanded by your parents. But today, the parents go in to reprimand the headmaster, and we just seem to have lost this whole area of balance in our lives and understanding that you don't need to have a voice or a view on everything, do you?
Well, I think it's okay to have a view on everything. We don't always need a voice on everything, but we also need to recognise that, you know, my voice is going to be different from your voice. And actually that's a good thing, because when we have different ideas and opinions, we can create amazing things in the world. But when we all have groupthink, then we just carry on with the same old, same old. So the diversity generates new ideas, it generates creativity and innovation, but with that comes more uncertainty, and therefore requires a greater level of flexibility, adaptability, empathy, different leadership skills than we had before.
So how do you relate that then back to the way that you've got this group of CEOs or this senior management team with you and the horses? How do you get that message over? Because what do you do at the beginning of the day? Do you stand them in the field and you identify who has empathy with the horses and who doesn't? You take them aside, you beat them up a bit, you tell them what they should be doing, and then put them back in the field at the end of the day and you see if anybody's changed. Is that what you're doing?
Well, as soon as people walk through the gate, their default patterns of behaviour show up. So the people who embrace change will walk through my gate and go, oh great, I'm really excited about today. The people who struggle with change and resist it will be the ones that come in arms folded, you know, and they'll either be really quiet. You can't tell me anything. Yeah, either that, or they'll be really quiet and say nothing, but I can feel their energy is very resistant. The people who dive in first will be the ones that say, me first, I want to lead a horse. And so whatever shows up in the workplace shows up with my horses. And in a way, it's a bit like putting your leadership and your team under a spotlight, because you suddenly reveal what's actually happening in the workplace. But whereas in the workplace, you're focused on where you're going and whatever it is that you're trying to do, here you're focusing on how are we showing up in relationship to each other and to the horses and to the task that I might have set them to do with a horse, whether it's leading them or engaging.
You see, I think it sounds fascinating. So what's the process that you take them through the day then? You identify the different character traits that these different people have, and you've already said you can see that when they're coming in through the gate at the beginning of the day. You can see the interaction that they're having with the animals. What's the next stage on for you then? What do you do with them then?
Well, so I do multiple of things, and I do anything from a one-day workshop to a 6-month programme. So I might work repeatedly with the same team over a period of time, and so that would then change. But a typical one day would focus on one-to-one leadership. So individually, each person would lead a horse of their own choosing, and they would learn where are they strong as a leader and where do they get derailed. So if they provide the clarity and direction and they provide the strong relationship based on trust, it will work and the horse will come with them. And if they don't, the horse will plant their feet. And so what they learn is the subtle nuances of what is it that I need to shift in my leadership behaviour to make me more effective. And we can all learn. I mean, my horses will teach me on a daily basis. So we're really, at the senior leadership level, we're fine-tuning leadership. So we're looking at tiny changes in behaviour that can have a dramatic impact. So it might be managing frustration, it might be having more trust, it might be listening, it might be more empathy. It's whatever that person needs to learn is what they will learn from the horse. And that would be the morning, and the afternoon would then focus on how do the team communicate. So you only need one person in the team to get distracted. The horses will sense it and stop. And that person will always be the person who normally gets distracted at work, or the person that is frustrated with the other person in their team, or all of the undercurrents that happen in a team, all of those things get revealed around the horses.
What about individual personalities? Because you have some people who are loud and you have some people who are quiet. You've got your extroverts, you've got your introverts within this. Does that have any bearing on it?
What it demonstrates is that everybody's effective as a leader when they bring their own style. So the introverts take great confidence in knowing that actually they don't need to be the loudest person in the field or in the room to be effective. So often they go away with more confidence. What it also happens is the extroverts then see how effective the introverts are by being quieter, being calmer, using less words, and not always pushing themselves forward. So we're able to have conversations around that. The other thing that I do is I will set up the day based on a mix of different exercises. So sometimes we're doing things that appeal to the introverts. So that might be quiet reflection around the horses. Other times we're much more active and doing, and that might appeal more to the extroverts. So we're looking at whatever suits different personalities, and all of that gets revealed as well. And of course the other interesting thing is I've got a herd of horses who all have their own personalities. So there's Mr. Blue, who's the cheeky class clown. There's Tiffin, who's deeply sensitive and emotional. There's a young horse who has no idea what he's doing yet because he's new to the team. And then there's my wise old mare Callie, who will headbutt you into next week if you're disrespectful or you shout at her or tell her what to do and don't give her an opinion. So they all have their own personalities, and what people realise is that just doing one thing as a leader isn't enough, that if we want to engage different personalities, we have to bring different things as a leader.
What kind of reaction do you get? I mean, obviously you do traditional leadership skills as well, and where you do not the chalk and talk as such, but you do talk to people and you go in and you do analyse what they do. What reaction do you get from them as the day goes on? Is it a nice day because they're animal lovers, or is it?
People love it. I mean, even what's really fascinating is the ones who are most resistant and the ones who say, I don't like animals and I don't want to be here. They're the ones who by 11 o'clock in the morning are saying, oh my goodness, this is amazing, I love it. Because what the horses do is they create a really deep connection, and so they see beyond all the masks of who we think we are and who we're trying to be and all the clever stuff we think we're pretending to be. They see right through all of that, and they just see you as a pure human being and as a leader, and engage with you on that raw emotional level, and it's really powerful.
Does it ever go horribly wrong? Is there ever a time when the people that you are trying to highlight these skills to just don't get it?
I've never had no. I mean, I don't know what horribly wrong looks like really, but I mean, everybody walks away with something, and often people say that was life-changing. I mean, people will cite examples of what they've done 7 or 8 years on. So I had a client who I worked with 8 years ago, one of my first clients, posted on LinkedIn last year how a horse called Opus changed my life, helped me run my business and win a business award. And that was 7 years later that she's posting about this horse that she had this experience with. That's the level of connection and the profound impact that it has on people. They never forget it.
Do you know, it sounds so different. And we said, leadership training, leadership coaches, 10 a penny. But there aren't that many that are doing it with horses, are there?
There are very few. There's a handful of people. There's actually about 250 people worldwide who are trained specifically to work with corporate leaders and teams with horses. But there are very few people in the UK who've got the leadership skills and training that I've had, and the business training that I've had, because I've not grown up as a horse person. So I come at this as a business person first, as a leadership second, and the horses are my methodology, a brilliant methodology, but they are the methodology that I get great results for business.
More from Jude in just a few moments' time. It really is a fascinating... I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting here thinking, do you know, I'd love to go on a day like that just to see what actually it's all about and how different it is. More from Jude in just a few moments' time. She's from Leaders by Nature, and we'll find out a little bit more about how this can apply to your business and what lessons can be learned for your organisation as well. Okay, time to get some more good tips for you on this edition of the programme. We always look to get some key takeaways from the programme. Let's go back to Business Connections Live 170. This was Tom Evans. He joined me in February of 2017, and we were talking about, well, how you can be more productive by just 10 minutes a day. What do you need to do in those 10 minutes to become more and more productive? He's talking about meditation. It was a real insight into what can be done. Sometimes we forget that, we work very hard, but sometimes we don't step back just for a moment to reassess what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to do. Really interesting show with the key takeaways. Here's Tom Evans.
Well, I have to say that I gave this no thought at all, which is brilliant. So I didn't waste any time thinking about what I was going to say. And I want to give you a takeaway, which is designed for business people to always make the right decision. So if you've got a decision to be faced, what you do is you ask your gut, does it think it's a good idea? Does it give it a green light or a red light? If it gives it a green light, then go ahead and move on to your heart, which I'll explain in a minute. If it gives it a red light, ask what has to change so you would like that idea, and you could give it a green light. Then you move up to your heart and you ask your heart about this idea. Is it cold? Is it lukewarm? Is it hot, or is it boiling hot? And if it's cold or lukewarm, ask again what has to change so you could fall in love with it. And when you get a green light from your gut and your heart is either warm or boiling about the idea, you move to your head. Then in your head, you ask your left brain, has it got enough detail? If it hasn't, what detail do you need to know? And in your right brain, you ask, have you got the whole vision for the idea? Once you're armed with all of this stuff, you know about this idea, you've got all the detail you need, move ahead with gusto, knowing you've made a fantastic decision.
Absolutely great show, and a very relaxing show as well, for that matter. And interestingly, while we was watching that, Jude said to me, I've dealt with him, I know him. So what's the story between the pair of you?
Well, when I was writing my book, Leading Through Uncertainty, I was 3 weeks away from the deadline, and I had a complete blank and just completely dried up with the words. I was about 80% of the book was written, and somebody connected me with Tom, and I had a coaching session with him over Skype, and then I downloaded his meditations, and I listened to his meditation music while I was writing, and the book just flowed.
He is an amazing guy, and if you want to watch the programme, once again, just go back. You'll find it, Tom Evans, 20th February 2017, how to improve your productivity in 10 minutes a day. Meditation might seem like a waste of time to a busy person, but if you are a business person struggling to make ends meet, a busy mum or a student cramming for exams, taking 10 minutes out of every day might seem like a luxury that can't be afforded, but it will change your life. Tom Evans, Business Connections Live, and there we go, an endorsement straight away. By the way, we're talking about the book there as well, aren't we? My guest today is Jude. She's from Leaders by Nation. This is one of the two books that Jude has recently written, Leading Through Uncertainty, Emotional Resilience and Human Connections in a Performance-Driven World. It really does make a fantastic read. And it's one of those books that it's beautifully signposted as you read through it. There are lots of things, you know what some books are like, where they just seem to be very word heavy. Yes, there are a lot of words. It's a good read, but it's beautifully signposted so that you know where you're going with it. Great book to read if you want to get your copy. Is it available on Amazon? I'm sure it is.
It's on Amazon, and it's on my website, judejennison.com.
And there are links also on the page as well if you want to get your copy. So this is book number one, is it?
This is book number two.
That's book number two.
That's book number two.
And book number one?
Book number one is called Leadership Beyond Measure.
So this is book number one. She's a two-book person. Leadership Beyond Measure, Profound Learning with Horses to Transform Leaders, easy for me to say, to transform leaders and businesses. Once again, a really good book. And, it's the worked examples that are so fascinating in this book, where it takes the examples of what we've been talking about today and what can be learned. Because remember, they cannot communicate with you, the horses, with words. The only way you can communicate with them is through empathy with the animal. And I don't know about you, but when you go to somebody's house and they have a cat, somebody else's cat is just a cat. But your cat You know its personality, you know its foibles, you know what it likes, you know its dislikes, and you do have an empathy with your own cat.
And if you think about that, that's a bit like with the workplace, where you know, as human beings, we have empathy with our own family and friends, but then people go to work and then they just say, well, they're just work colleagues, and they just ignore them and they don't have as much empathy. And I think the challenge with that in business is, if we don't have the same level of empathy with our work colleagues, then we're not going to seek to understand them and we can't collaborate effectively. And so that's why the empathy that we have in our home lives, we need to bring that into the workplace.
Do you think stress is a big problem in the workplace? And do you think working with the horses and talking to you and working with you actually allows you to identify that and decrease the amount of stress you have?
Yeah, I mean, stress is a massive issue because we're permanently connected now. We're no longer a 9-to-5 working place. So that permanently on, it creates more stress. The uncertainty creates more stress. Change creates stress. Stress is just massive. What happens when people are in the presence of the horses is the horses are so sensitive that the person that says, no, I feel fine, but inside their heart is racing, the horses will feel that. And so they're able to highlight to me and to the team where you've got people in the team who are maybe suffering and struggling with stress. So it gets revealed around the horses instantly, but then the skill is for me to work with that person and the horse to help them bring their heart rates down. The research that's been done by the HeartMath Institute in the US shows that in the presence of horses, we reduce our heart rate variance, we become more relaxed, more calm, and reduce our stress levels. And of course, once we've done that, we're able to operate from our normal base level of leadership rather than our stress behaviour. Once I've helped people work with the horses to bring their heart rates down and their breathing down, then they're able to do that back in the workplace because they have a much greater understanding of what happens when the heart rate goes like that and how they get, you know, into their heads, and they're able to just calm it all down again quickly. And we can turn it on and off in an instant. From
a business point of view, is it a difficult concept for you to sell? Because there is a moment on the telephone where you're going to say, well, actually, what you do, you come along to me and I send you in a field with a load of horses and we see how you get on with them. Is it a difficult concept from a business point of view to sell that?
I think yes and no, in terms of people aren't searching for leadership.
You're not going to put it in,
You're not
you?
going to search for leadership with horses
No.
on a website. And if you came across it by chance without knowing anything about it, you might be sceptical, you might dismiss it quickly, which is why I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I go out and I describe what we're doing and the results that we get, which is most important. Is, you know, when you turn a loss-making division into a profit in 3 months, you know, when I've helped businesses grow their revenue and reduce their stress levels, those are the results that people are really interested in. And in many ways, clients don't care how we do that. What they're interested in is the result, and it's the pace of the result, because with just 1 day or a 3-month program, I can get dramatic results that might take a year long with a classroom-based training.
That is amazing. Is there any element of this that is classroom-based, PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint?
No.
Is it all really just with the horses and discussing it there and then with them?
Yeah, it's in the moment, because then people feel it's such an embodied experience. So I always think it's a bit like, you know, you don't learn to drive a car by reading the manual. You learn to drive a car by sitting in it and practicing it and seeing what's working and what's not working. And it's the same with our leadership. We need to learn through experience. And some of that is on-the-job training, but there's no substitution for being face-to-face with a horse and the horse saying no. Because, for example, if somebody is aggressive, they've probably repeatedly been told, don't be aggressive, you're too aggressive. But usually that person doesn't think they're aggressive and they don't know how to bring something else. Well, if they're in the presence of the horses, usually people aren't aggressive with the horses because they realise the horses are 600 kilos and they can't overpower them. So usually we take away aggression instantly anyway. But even if somebody is dominant with the horses will just refuse to engage, or in the case of my mare, she'll headbutt them. And once she's done that, that is so clear that they have to find something else in the moment, because you don't want to stand there all day not being able to move a horse. And so the desire to want the horse to come with you means that we will fine tune and bring something else. And once that person understands how to fine tune and be slightly less aggressive, and we're talking tiny degrees here, once they've found that, they know what it feels like when the horse is coming, and they know what it feels like when the horse isn't. And so it's that embodied experience that they take back to the workplace.
Has it been life-changing for some people, do you think?
Oh, completely, yeah. I mean, I've had all sorts of things. I've saved marriages. I've had business partners who've come, who were not communicating, who have come together and have worked with them. I've had business partners who've said, actually, we're not a good fit, so we should part company, but they've done it amicably. I've had families who've come, who've had teenage children who they're all at war over GCSE results and revision, so I've done that, but most of my work is with senior leaders and exec teams. And I think when you bring a team together and they find a way to feel when they're aligned and flowing together, and they recognise when they're not, everything changes.
You come from a corporate background, and we didn't really talk about this at the beginning, but you said you came to horses quite late. You weren't brought up with horses all your life. At what point in your career did you go, horses, senior management, leadership skills? It's a perfect match. When did you do that then?
Well, I left my IBM career in 2010 and set up a leadership and coaching business, and I was working with a group of directors, and I challenged them to overcome their fear of something. And because I'm a great believer in walking my talk, I went and overcame my fear of horses, and in the process learnt so much that just out of curiosity, I went and trained in this work. And then clients kept coming. So I did what any sensible person does. I bought a horse and set up in, doing leadership with horses, and the rest is history.
It is a big change though, isn't it?
It's
massive. It was a huge risk. And what kind of, we've already talked that you've said that people have come to you and they've said it's worked for them in the different circumstances. For senior leadership teams who are watching this now, for their CEOs, global CEOs that may be watching this, what kind of feedback have you had from them? What are the kind of comments that you get back after they've been with you for a day, or they've been with you on one of your 3-month programs?
They will say it's mind-blowing, it's life-changing. Those are the things that people always say at the end of a day. But later on is when it gets interesting. What they will say is that the team have a greater level of openness, honesty, transparency and trust. And trust is a big issue in business, particularly in uncertainty. So all of those things change, and once those things change, then whatever their result is that they're trying to create, they're able to create it quicker. So I had a small business who'd just gone through a management buyout. They'd come together as a team. They had big, scary, hairy goals that they wanted to achieve in this small business. And a year later, they said, we're a year ahead of where we expected to be on our plan.
It just seems a fantastic idea. More from Jude in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. If you want to find out all the contact details for Jude, or you want to find out where you get the book, she also does podcasts as well, and she goes out and she networks, she does public speaking. What she doesn't do isn't worth talking about. Then you can find out all her contact details are actually on our website at businessconnectionslive.com. In just a few moments' time, we will also show you her website as well, and we'll go there and we'll see what that's all about. But really, what a different way to approach. There's so many people out there at the moment that are talking about leadership courses, leadership styles, and it is invariably chalk and talk, and it's probably as dull as ditch water. At least you're getting out to actually feel the ditches, aren't you, when you're with you? So you're actually out there in the wilds, and to communicate and to work with animals as well. That is down to the empathy that you have. It's just got to be the way forward. More from Jude in just a few moments' time. By the way, something that I've been thinking about while Jude's been talking, I'm just wondering if there's any way we can change our media training course so horses are involved somehow. Horses and cats. Who knows? That'd be great, wouldn't it?
I've got ideas.
You got ideas, have you? There you go. So that could be something. I mean, it is a fantastic niche market. If you feel that you can't communicate with the media, if there's something that how would you like to maintain the value of your business, or maybe increase it when you've got the opportunity to talk in front of the media? Well, then we show you how to do that if you come on one of our media training courses. It's called How to Handle the Media. Just simply go to our website and you'll see that we've got How to Handle the Media as one of the tabs on the website. Click on that. It'll take you to a page and it'll give you the 8 key reasons that are really important for you, to help you control, to maintain, to raise your profile when it comes to handling the media. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much is available on social media, on the web, about their businesses today. And what is the one question that someone could ask you that you really don't want them to ask? What is that one question? And do you have an answer for it? You had the guy from Persimmons a little while back. He was interviewed. He was going to be talking about the fact that their company had grown, the profits for the company were up, and the interviewer started by asking, do you regret your £75 million bonus? He stood there, he looked at the interview and he said, that's not what we're here to talk about today. That was very unfortunate, and walked off. The share price for that organisation bombed the following day. 3 months later, he's out of a job. Kept his bonus, of course, but that's all right. I mean, I don't know how he's going to manage on £75 million. But what would happen to your business, and what would be the question that could do the same to you? Are you prepared for it? Come on one of our media training courses and we'll show you how to prepare, how to be ready for it, and we'll put you through the experience as well of sitting in front of the camera and sitting in front of a radio microphone, being interviewed in those difficult instances. Maybe Prince Andrew could have come on one of our training courses before coming or going on the TV and being interviewed. A little bit late now, but there you go. Something for other members of the royal family to be aware of. In fact, they could probably all go. We could just do a single day, couldn't we? For all of them, they could all come. No matter who they are, they could all come. You're watching Business Connections Live. We're live on a Monday. We're live here every Monday. My guest today is Jude. She's from Leaders by Nature. I want to make certain that I am pronouncing your surname correctly. Is it Jensen or Jensen? Jensen. So Jude Jensen, Leaders by Nature is the name of her organisation. And what she does, she teaches leaders to be leaders by growing their empathy, and she uses horses to do it. It's a different approach. What about, do you ever take the more traditional approach? Do you go, by the way, we help you become better leaders with the horses? Do people ever say to you, well, actually, we'd just like you to teach us to be better leaders without the horses?
Then I wouldn't do it, because the horses are the quickest way and the most sustainable way of developing your leadership skills that I have found.
Is there a tick sheet that somebody should have in their mind's eye that would make them ideal to come on one of your courses?
I typically working with senior leadership teams and exec teams, and usually either
What kind of number of people?
On a day, 8 to 10.
Right.
But I work within the constraints of what the board are. So if the board of a company is 10 people or 12 people, then I'll work with 12 people. So typically it's exec teams, and the majority of my clients are large organisations, so they're household names, blue chip companies, but I also work with some smaller high growth entrepreneurial businesses, so businesses that are looking to substantially grow in the next year or two, who recognise that they need to upskill and develop their leadership teams to be able to do so.
We've talked a lot about the fact that we're finding the empathy, that we're working better together. It still doesn't, I suppose, answer the question about this uncertainty that we have. What are the lessons that you feel are learned to allow us to cope with the uncertainty?
Well, it's the confidence to know that you're never in control, and that even though you're not in control, your leadership skills are enough. So, for example, if I were to hand you a piece of rope, you would take it in your hands without thinking about it. But as soon as I handed you a piece of rope with a horse on the end of it, that creates a whole level of uncertainty. And so what it gives people is the confidence to know that what they're doing in holding a piece of rope is working. What we tend to do in uncertainty is we focus on the bit that we don't understand or don't know, and we wrap ourselves in knots and get stressed and anxious and fearful over it. The good leaders, the best leaders, are the ones who can lead through uncertainty without needing to be in control. So they will trust that they can walk, they can hold a piece of rope, they trust that the horse is going to walk, they trust that the horse is kind, and therefore they focus on all of that, and therefore leading a horse should be really easy. And of course it is really easy if you believe it is.
And that is where they're learning those core skills, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot around keep the belief, don't let the self-doubt in, have the self-confidence as well as the empathy.
Do you know, it's been a fascinating insight into something that is so totally different. As I said to you, we have had a number of leadership coaches on the programme. They've all got their different sort of take on it, but yours is by far the most innovative take on all of that. And
it's about, for each individual, finding what they do best. So finding their natural, authentic leadership style. So rather than saying, if you do A plus B plus C, you get this result, what we're looking at is, who are you at your best and where do you get stuck?
When you talk about it, you can either do single days or you can do over a 3-month period. How does that change? How is that different? Is it the same thing over 3 months that you come in every so often, or is there a progression that you take, a journey that you take?
There's a progression. In one day, I can just scrape the top of, you know, how are people showing up, how are they interacting, and yes, they go away with massive shifts. But the clients that sign up to a 3-month program, it grows exponentially. So the first sort of hour of the day is a bit like, oh, the horse is 600 kilos and they're very tall and it's all a bit scary. On day 2, everyone comes in and goes, oh, it's Mr. Blue, I love Mr. Blue. So we're already building from a solid base of relationship, and then we just go much deeper.
I think it's just such an insightful idea. If you want to find out more about this, in just a moment I'm going to invite you to do your key takeaways, so be prepared for that. But let's have a quick look at the website. You can find Jude's website, Jude Jensen. Just tap her name into Google, and you'll see here that gives you a bit of an overview of what the whole day is about. Are your leaders and teams change ready for companies who dare to be different? We help you develop high-performing leaders and executive teams. Her approach, it gives you a bit of an explanation about that. Shows you also where you're going to be taking the daily course. And this is the other thing as well. This is the kind of testimonials every business would like to have. Testimonials in the Telegraph, BBC 2, Virgin, BBC Radio 4. They've all talked about it. Professional manager, the Financial Times, and just some of the horses. By the way, the horses that are there, can we identify which ones are there? Is the white one your fave, is it?
The white one is Mr. Blue. He's the cheeky class clown.
Right. The one on the right?
The one on the right is Geo. And the one on the far left is Callie, and the one next to me is Tiffin.
I mean, they are big animals, aren't they?
They are.
And how many horses do you have in total?
I have 4.
You have those 4 there?
Well, sadly, the one on the right, Geo, has passed away, so I now have a new horse called Admiral, but Geo is no longer with us.
And Admiral isn't quite into the system yet?
He's been with me for 5 weeks, so he's still learning and trying to make sense of what is it we're doing.
And if you want to also get some of the success stories and some of the key testimonials, you can go to the bottom on the website as well, and some wonderful videos there that you can watch to find out exactly how it has changed the management style of different people who have been on the particular course. It's really worth doing, actually, and it's a very, very different way, and of course gets you out in the fresh air as well, so at least you're out there in the open as well. Whereabouts are you in the UK?
I'm based in Warwickshire, so I'm just off the M40 corridor, so easy access from all over the country.
And is it your farm? Is it yours?
At the moment I'm renting stables and land, but I'm putting in my own plan this year to buy my own small holding. So watch this space.
Wow, living in a world of uncertainty then.
Absolutely,
Wow.
always.
Listen, we always invite our guests to give us their key takeaways, the things to remember, the key benefits to the people who this may apply to, why they should be talking to you. Say who you are, where you're from. It's straight down camera number 4 over there. And take a breath. The airwaves are all yours.
If I told you you were going to stand in a field and get feedback on your leadership skills from a horse, you'd probably think I'm crazy, because all disruption is crazy in the beginning. In the 1990s, when Bill Gates said every home will have a PC in it, we thought he was crazy too, because that's what happens when we're leading radical change. And that's what I'm doing by working with horses and leaders. I'm Jude Jensen. I'm the author of the book Leading Through Uncertainty, and I work with senior leaders and executives to help them lead through uncertainty, to be more confident in not knowing and being out of their comfort zones. And yes, I do it with a herd of horses, and my horses respond based on your non-verbal communication. So what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your intentions, your energy, they respond based on that. My clients are typically blue chip organisations and high growth entrepreneurial small businesses. And my background in IBM enables me to bridge the world between the horses and business. And that's it, really. The horses do amazing work. I've had clients turn a loss-making division into a profit in just 3 months. I've had management buyout be a year ahead of their plan, only 1 year into their plan. Some astonishing results that the horses have got for businesses, for leaders and teams.
It's a fantastic story. If you want to find out more, as I said, do go to Jude's website, and you can see some of the testimonials that are on there. You can also contact Jude as well to find out more details of how your organisation can get involved and go along and grow your organisation by using the skills that you will learn with Jude. It's been a real fascinating program. I say that a lot, and sometimes maybe it sounds a bit hollow, but today it's been so different. As I said, leadership coaches are 10 a penny, but this is something very different, and you just get that there's a real feel that there's something very different and very, very unique in what senior leadership teams can actually gain from this.
It's unique and it gets fast results, and that's why I do it.
And that's what's so good about it. Listen, thank you very much indeed for your company today. I hope you've enjoyed today's programme. It's been very, very different, and got another great show for you coming up next week as well here at Business Connections Live. Future programmes include Kath Lloyd. She's making the change. No horses in that one. Michelle McMaster. She's looking at healing. Colette Lees International Limited. Brian Norris, Living Memories. A really good idea from Brian. You'll find that one really, really fascinating. And Penny Haslam, the award-winning inspirational speaker, is going to be on promo along with Warren Knight. By the way, I've got Penny's book at the moment, reading that, How to Be a Little Bit Famous. That's a really, really good book to get your hands on. Listen, thank you very much for your company today. Hope you've enjoyed today's show. But from Jude and myself, Steve Highland, have yourself a great week. We'll see you next Monday at 12 noon.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.
Good.